Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight, we're traveling deep into the frozen north, into the world of the Vikings, where sleep wasn't a struggle, but an art. Long before screens, stress, and sleepless nights, they mastered the rhythm of nature, the warmth of firelight, the peace of darkness, and the secret of resting with the earth itself. This is why Vikings slept better than you, ancient Nordic secrets for deep sleep and stillness. So before you get comfortable, take a gentle moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if these deep sleep history stories help you find peace, sleep better, or simply reflect on our shared journey through time. Now, close your eyes and let the northern wind guide you into the calmest night you've ever known. The sun was never meant to linger long in a Viking winter. By the time the day's work was done, the light was already dying, bleeding its last amber glow across the frozen fjord. In the village of Skarholm, roofs of turf and timber huddled beneath a sky the color of pewter. A pale smoke curled upward from each longhouse chimney, catching the faint blush of dusk before vanishing into the cold. Inside one of those homes, the rhythm of evening began. The door creaked open, and a gust of icy air swept in, carrying with it the scent of pine and distant sea. A man stepped through, shaking snow from his cloak, his breath misting like a ghost in the dim light. Behind him came the sound of hooves, the cattle being guided into shelter. Their low moves echoed softly, mingling with the rhythmic thud of boots on frozen earth. The villagers moved with quiet purpose, as if they had done this every night for 100 generations. And perhaps they had. From the shadow of the fjord to the glow of the hearth, the Viking evening unfolded. Not rushed, not restless, but steady, patient, ancient. Beneath layers of wool and fur, warmth spread slowly. The scent of barley soup and smoked fish filled the air, a promise that the world outside, for all its frost and wind, could not touch the comfort within. Firelight danced on wooden walls, carving flickers of orange across shields and carved beams. The crackle of burning pine was soft, almost musical, a lullaby older than language itself. Someone laughed, a child yawned, a mother stirred the pot again, humming under her breath. The night was coming, but it was not feared. It was welcomed, like an old friend who had walked the same snowy path to the same door for centuries. Outside, the wind whispered through the pines, long, low, and lonely. Inside, hearts slowed. The fire breathed. And for a moment, time forgot to move. This was how the Vikings ended their days, not with screens or clocks, but with the steady rhythm of warmth, darkness, and rest. Their world dimmed gently, allowing the body to surrender, the mind to drift. They didn't chase sleep, they earned it. Inside the longhouse, The world was small, and that was its comfort. The walls, built from pine and earth, held more than warmth. They held memory. Generations had sat in this same glow, beneath beams darkened by centuries of smoke. The fire at the center was not just a source of heat, it was the heart of everything. Its rhythm, the soft crackle and hiss of sap, marked time better than any clock. The flame flickered, reflected in a dozen sleepy eyes, and shadows moved like slow ghosts across the walls. A woman's hands worked gently beside the hearth, folding wool and mending seams. Each motion was quiet, deliberate, like a prayer done not with words, but with patience. The scent of dried herbs hung above the pot, thyme, sage, a touch of smoke. In the corner, a child traced patterns in the dirt floor, his mind drifting like the snow outside. An old man leaned back, stroking his beard, his face glowing with the fire's light. "Winter teaches us to listen," he murmured once, when someone asked why the Vikings never feared the dark. "Because when the world grows silent, even the smallest sound, a breath, a heartbeat, becomes a song." Outside, the wind howled across the frozen land, but inside, there was music. The soft creak of wood, the rustle of fur blankets, the steady rhythm of sleep pulling closer. Someone ladled soup into wooden bowls, the steam curling like silver threads. Each bowl carried more than food. It carried safety, gratitude, survival. They didn't eat fast. They ate together. There were no distractions, no glowing screens, no blue light to trick the mind into thinking the day still lived. Only the orange fire and the rhythm of slow, shared breaths. After the meal, the talk grew softer. Stories began, of voyages, of storms, of gods that watched from the stars. Even the children knew these tales by heart, though they still leaned forward, eyes wide, waiting for the ending as if it were new. The Vikings didn't fear silence, they filled it with meaning. The pauses between words were part of the song. One could almost feel their bodies sinking with the rhythm of the flame. Inhale, exhale, like the sea they were born beside. The fire's light painted their faces gold and amber. It softened the lines of age, blurred the boundary between the living and the remembered. For the Vikings, night was not the enemy of life, it was the keeper of it. When darkness deepened, they did not reach for light, they let it fade, trusting the fire's glow to guide them inward. And in that slow surrender, their minds began to unwind. They did not fight sleep, they invited it. It came like a tide, quiet, inevitable, kind. Their rest was deep not because they escaped the world, but because they had already made peace with it. By the time the last ember dimmed, the world outside had turned to ink. The village no longer existed as a collection of houses, but as a single breathing body, its warmth pulsing softly beneath the snow. The longhouse sighed. Someone turned in their sleep. Another whispered a name. Beyond the walls, the wind carried stories of hunts, of storms, of gods who once walked among men. The Vikings believed the night listened, that if you fell asleep with a quiet heart, the world heard you. The fire's glow faded to a gentle red, and shadows grew still, like the hands of time folding in prayer. The breath of sleepers rose and fell together, the soft chorus of those who trusted the dark. In the stillness, the mind found its rhythm, slower, calmer, deeper. No light but the stars, no sound but the wind. And in that sacred silence, the human spirit reset itself, as it had for thousands of winters. There was no need for alarms or glowing numbers ticking down the night. The body simply knew when to rest and when to rise. But far from that frozen land, the modern world hums endlessly. The night, once gentle, is now fractured by 1,000 tiny suns. Phone screens, street lamps, and sleepless windows. We traded firelight for blue light, and silence for constant noise. We no longer drift into sleep, we fight it, swiping, scrolling, thinking. The Vikings didn't have that war. Their nights were not filled with data or distraction, but with the simple trust that darkness was safe. They slept not because they escaped life, but because they had truly lived it. The cold, the hunger, the laughter, the warmth. Each night was a reward, not an interruption. Perhaps that is why they slept better than we do, not because their world was easier, but because it was whole. They didn't divide their time into shifts and deadlines. They didn't chase meaning. They embodied it in every meal, every fire, every shared silence. Their night wasn't stolen by thoughts of tomorrow. It was honored, the way one honors the sea before sailing. As the fire died, they whispered thanks to the land that fed them, to the sky that watched, to the unseen spirits that guarded the threshold of dreams. Then they slept, deeply, entirely, the kind of sleep that doesn't need music or meditation apps, the kind of sleep that comes from belonging to something larger than yourself. So tonight, as you lie in your own room, with your screens, your hums, your distant city glow, remember the longhouse. Remember the quiet. Let the fire inside you burn low, not out. Let your breath slow until the night can hear it. And if you listen closely enough, perhaps somewhere across the centuries, the night will listen back. When the last stories had been told and the laughter had softened into silence, the Vikings prepared for what they called simply the night. There was no time to check, no clock to dictate the moment. The rhythm of the body decided for them. Around 8 or 9 in the evening, when the fire's bright heart began to shrink into a warm, breathing glow, one by one they drifted toward sleep. The longhouse changed its tone. What had been a living space became a dream space. The air was cool now, scented with smoke and wool. The fire hissed softly, throwing only a dim light that trembled along the beams. Shadows no longer moved like dancers, they rested. Straw mattresses rustled as men, women, and children lay down side by side, covered with thick blankets of fur and woven wool. There were no beds in the modern sense, only raised platforms packed with straw, soft yet uneven, holding the faint scent of hay from summer fields. Sleep came not as a command, but as a tide. Outside, the wind moved through the fjord, slow and deep. Inside, the rhythm of breathing replaced all conversation. Dozens of lungs expanding and falling together, sinking into something ancient, a community of sleep. They didn't sleep alone. To share warmth was to share life. A child curled against his mother. A warrior turned his back to the cold wall and felt the comfort of others beside him. Somewhere a dog sighed and shifted. The longhouse, once filled with stories, became a single steady breath. This was the first sleep, the beginning of the body's dialogue with the night. It wasn't rushed, and it wasn't meant to last until morning. In those early hours, the human mind slipped deep, guided by darkness and the slow burn of melatonin, a rhythm older than civilization itself. There was no fear of waking too soon, no worry about tomorrow's hour. They simply surrendered to the pull, trusting that the night would hold them. The room cooled as the fire dimmed, and the world outside froze in place. Yet under blankets and fur, a steady heat built from shared bodies. That warmth was not luxury, it was survival, and it made sleep sweeter. A Viking's first sleep was not an escape, it was a return to rhythm, to instinct, to the earth itself. The mind released its grip, the heart slowed, and the soul, for a few quiet hours, remembered what it meant to rest without resistance. Somewhere in the middle of the night, the longhouse stirred. It wasn't loud nor sudden, just a subtle shift, like the world turning in its sleep. The fire had faded to red embers, soft as breathing. The air had cooled, wrapping the sleepers in a hush that felt almost sacred. And then, slowly, one pair of eyes opened, then another. The Vikings didn't wake in alarm. They woke because their bodies told them to. 3, maybe 4 hours had passed since they first surrendered to the dark. Their minds had traveled deep, and now they rose gently to the surface, not to end their rest, but to live in its middle. This was the first waking, a forgotten rhythm of the human body. Long before electricity, before the industrial clock carved the night into deadlines, people everywhere once slept in two halves, the first sleep and the second. Between them, a quiet interlude. The Vikings, though they had no word for it, lived this rhythm as naturally as they breathed. For them, it was not strange to lie awake for a short while, to whisper, to think, to dream with eyes open. Some would tend the fire, feeding it a handful of wood. Others might step outside, their feet sinking into the snow, their breath steaming in the starlight. Above, the sky glowed faintly with northern lights, weaving colors like silent prayers. Inside, those who stayed awake would talk softly about dreams or gods or plans for the coming thaw. A woman might cradle her child, rocking gently, half asleep herself. A man might trace the runes carved into the wood beside his bed, seeking meaning in their lines. And some would simply lie still, awake yet calm, letting their thoughts drift like ships upon the dark. In this in-between hour, something quiet happened inside the mind. Modern scientists would one day find the explanation. Melatonin, the sleep hormone, peaks in darkness, then softens as the first sleep ends. The body isn't meant to sleep endlessly. It moves in waves, like the sea. The Vikings didn't fight that rhythm, they followed it. They didn't light torches or chase the dawn. They trusted the night to guide them through its two halves. Their waking between dreams was peaceful, unhurried. There was no blue light to jar their senses, no artificial hum to remind them of the world outside. Only the slow crackle of coals, the faint sigh of snow sliding from the roof, and the shared warmth of breath. For a brief time, their minds were open, neither dreaming nor fully awake, but somewhere in between, where thought and spirit touched. They might pray, they might love, they might simply listen to the heartbeat of the house and to the quiet that modern nights have forgotten. It was in this space, between the first and second sleep, that reflection was born, not as a task, but as a natural part of being human. The Vikings didn't name it meditation, but perhaps in their stillness, they invented it. After that quiet hour between dreams, the Vikings returned to sleep, not as an effort, but as a natural descent, a gentle falling back into darkness that asked for nothing and gave everything. The embers still glowed faintly in the hearth, red as the pulse of a calm heart. The wind outside had changed its tone, softer now, like the sea retreating into itself. One by one, eyes closed again. Bodies shifted under furs and blankets. The longhouse exhaled. There was no rush to capture sleep. It simply came, steady and sure, like the tide that always finds the shore. This was the second sleep, the deeper one. In it, the mind wandered through a quieter landscape, neither haunted nor restless, but vast and slow, like drifting snow. During these hours, the body mended itself. Muscles loosened, the heart slowed to its most peaceful rhythm. Even dreams changed. They softened, turning from vivid stories into gentle murmurs. Science, centuries later, would call this phase the REM and slow wave cycle, where memory and repair weave together like threads of the same cloth. But to the Vikings, it was simpler. The night was not something to understand. It was something to trust. They didn't name hormones or study brain waves. They lived in harmony with them. When melatonin ebbed, they rose. When it deepened, they returned to the dark. The fire's dim light flickered over calm faces, over the rise and fall of chests, over the carved beams that had witnessed countless nights like this. In that silence, something eternal lingered, a kind of peace modern sleep rarely knows. No alarms, no schedules, no electric glow to interrupt the conversation between body and night. Their second sleep often lasted until dawn, when the first gray light of morning seeped through the smoke hole in the roof. A rooster crowed, a dog stirred, and slowly, as if remembering a promise, the village awoke again. But their awakening was not the jolt of an alarm. It was a return from within. Their bodies were already aligned with the rhythm of light. The transition was seamless, like a wave turning into shore foam. They didn't stretch to shake off exhaustion. They simply arose. The night had done its work. Mind soothed, spirit clear, body restored. They woke without confusion, without the fog of interruption. In a world ruled by natural rhythm, rest was not a luxury, it was law. Compare that to us. We fight the dark. We drown it in brightness, in noise, in screens that keep our minds awake while our souls beg for quiet. We have forgotten the art of the second descent, that moment when the mind lets go of control, trusting the body to find its way back to stillness. The Vikings didn't need to be taught how to sleep, they simply remembered. So tonight, as you lie down in your own world of gentle machines and restless light, try to listen for that older rhythm, the one that whispers beneath all others. The first sleep takes you down, the second carries you home. By the time the moon had climbed high above the fjord, the longhouse had gone quiet again. But it wasn't the silence of emptiness, it was the stillness that breathes. Around midnight, perhaps a little after, something gentle stirred. The rhythm of the Vikings' night was not broken, it simply shifted. Eyes opened softly, as if guided by a rhythm older than the stars. This was not insomnia, it was the world calling them to wake. They rose not with urgency, but with ease. The body knew this hour, the hour between sleeps, when the mind floats between the sea of dreams and the shore of awareness. Outside, the frost whispered along the wooden walls, and through a small gap above the door, the moonlight streamed in like water. It pooled upon the floor, silver and calm, painting the straw mats in a glow that shimmered like snow. Someone stirred the embers back to life, pushing a log into the hearth. Sparks rose and vanished.
The faint hiss of heat meeting cold filled the room. Others stretched beneath their blankets, not to leave sleep entirely, but to greet this quiet hour that belonged to no one and everyone. They called it nothing because it needed no name. The air smelled faintly of smoke and herbs. A woman sat up, wrapping herself in a cloak of wool, her hair catching the fire's flicker. She poured a small cup of warm water steeped with herbs, valerian root, hops, chamomile, plants gathered months ago, now dry and fragrant. The cup steamed softly in her hands, and she sipped, listening to the low hum of the night. Across the room, an old man rose to check the animals. He lifted the latch, opened the heavy wooden door, and stepped into the cold. The stars hung sharp above him, thousands, clear and close. The cattle stirred, the horses shifted in their stalls. He whispered to them softly, not words of command, but of care, and they answered with slow breaths, their bodies steaming gently in the chill. The air tasted of snow and pine. When he returned, the moonlight followed him in, tracing his shadow across the floor. This was the watching hour. The world's heartbeat slowed, yet alive. The Vikings did not see it as interruption, but as invitation, a time to be half awake and fully aware, to think, to listen, to exist without the pressure of purpose. They didn't count the minutes. Time in that darkness had no sharp edges. It was soft, like the glow of the coals. The house sighed again, the people moving with the grace of sleepwalkers who trusted the night not to harm them. In the watching hours, even thought moved differently, not in straight lines, but in gentle spirals, circling dreams, memories, and prayers. They didn't fear the quiet. They met it, face to face, like an old friend returned from the snow.
The moon hung steady above the longhouse, its pale light spilling across the land like milk over stone. Inside, a few souls remained awake, caught in that serene space between sleep and waking. It was a time when the world spoke in whispers, not with words, but with quiet things. The sigh of timber, the murmur of wind, the faint shuffle of someone tending the fire. A young man rose and pulled his cloak tighter. He crossed the room and crouched beside the hearth, adding 2 small logs to the coals. The flame caught slowly, stretching into the darkness, painting his face in amber. He stared into it for a while, not to think, but to feel. The heat, the calm, the slow heartbeat of the earth beneath him. Nearby, his wife stirred, half awake, smiling faintly. They exchanged no words. None were needed. The language of this hour was silence. Outside, the wind softened. The animals breathed in rhythm, the steady pulse of life continuing beneath the stars. From a small window cut into the wall, a sliver of moonlight crossed the floor. It touched a wooden shelf where a set of carved runes rested in a small leather pouch. The man reached for them, his fingers brushing the cool wood. Each rune was a prayer, a lever, a seed of thought carved into eternity. He drew one and turned it in his hand, tracing its edge, reading it not with his eyes, but with his heart. The rune meant uruz, strength, endurance, the primal energy that binds life through hardship. He smiled. It was not a message from the gods, but a reminder that even in the coldest hours, life continues quietly. Behind him, the woman poured a small drink of warm herbal tea, the scent of chamomile and valerian rising like memory. She took a slow sip, the warmth spreading through her chest. Outside, an owl called, a deep, slow note that echoed off the valley walls. Somewhere in the distance, the sea whispered, hidden under ice. This was not loneliness, this was presence, a sacred awareness that the world was awake to, breathing beside them. They spoke quietly then, as people often do when time feels generous, about the children, about the spring that would come, about nothing in particular. Words drifted like snowflakes, light and slow. Their voices never rose. The night was listening, and they didn't want to disturb it. When the conversation faded, the silence filled in again, not empty, but alive. The fire cracked once, sending a spark upward like a star. The man leaned back and looked at the rafters above, black against the silver light. He imagined the sky beyond the roof, stars that the gods might have hung as candles for sleepless souls. The air shimmered with the faint scent of smoke and tea. He felt small, but not insignificant. In the deep heart of winter, surrounded by silence, the Vikings found not fear, but connection to the earth, to each other, and to the vast, quiet pulse of the universe itself.
The night had reached its deepest calm, that sacred stillness where even the stars seemed to breathe. The fire had burned low again, the last ember pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. The longhouse rested beneath the weight of silence, wrapped in fur, wood, and warmth. The moon had drifted westward, its light now softer, brushing across sleeping faces and the rough grain of wooden beams. The air was cold enough to make the breath shimmer, but inside it was peace that filled the space. This was the end of the watching hours, not a command to return to sleep, but a gentle invitation. One by one, the few who were still awake began to settle back. The woman placed her empty cup beside the hearth. The man slid the runes back into their leather pouch and laid his hand on the wood for a moment, a silent thank you. The old farmer, having checked the animals, pulled the door closed and leaned his back against it, eyes soft, lips curved with the faintest trace of contentment. Nothing more needed to be done. The night had spoken, and they had listened. And now the body, obedient to a rhythm older than memory, began to drift again. They lay down not to escape consciousness, but to join it in another form. The second sleep was waiting, patient and deep. Above them, the stars shimmered faintly through the roof's smoke hole. Each flicker looked alive, as if the sky itself was breathing in time with them. Somewhere far away, perhaps beyond the edge of hearing, the sea moved, slow and eternal. The Vikings believed the gods sometimes walked through such hours, unseen but near, listening to the quiet hearts of mortals. Maybe that was why these nights felt holy. To be awake when the rest of the world slept was to share the earth's secret heartbeat. There was no anxiety, no rush to force the mind back into dreams. They knew that rest was not only in sleep, it was in stillness. And so they lingered for a few moments more, their thoughts unbound, drifting between past and future, carried by the same rhythm that guided the tides. The woman reached out, touching her husband's hand. The warmth of that simple gesture felt like sunrise before dawn. Soon, the quiet breathing of the house returned to one sound, soft and steady. The last log cracked in the fire. A spark lifted, glowed, and vanished. And outside, the stars breathed again, long, slow, endless.
As the night stretched into its quiet rhythm, the longhouse glowed faintly from within. The fire had been tamed, no longer bright, but alive, breathing in gentle embers. This was the hour when the Vikings prepared their bodies, not for battle, but for rest. And in their world, rest was sacred. Before lying down, they turned to what the earth gave them: herbs, warmth, and scent. The air was filled with something soft, the fragrance of valerian root drying near the hearth. Its smell was peculiar, not sweet, not sharp, but deep, earthy, like the soil after rain. The Vikings called it the root of calm, though they had no word for chemistry or sedative. To them, it was simply magic that grew in the ground, a gift from the gods for quiet minds. Women would crush the dried root between stones, the sound rhythmic and slow, echoing faintly through the wooden hall. The powder was wrapped in cloth, tied, and placed inside sleeping pillows. The warmth of the head and breath released its scent through the night. It didn't make one fall asleep. It invited the body to remember how. Around the room, small bundles of herbs hung from beams: hops flowers, chamomile, linden blossoms. They were gathered during summer, when the fields sang with bees. Now, in the heart of winter, they were the memory of sunlight. The hops, once used in ale, were dried and stuffed into soft pouches. Their smell was strange and bitter, but calming, grounding, the scent of stillness itself. When crushed lightly, they released oils that eased tension from the chest, from the thoughts that refused to settle. Near the hearth, an old woman stirred a pot of water, dropping in chamomile and linden flowers. The steam rose,
curling like white spirits through the air. Someone poured a cup. The tea glowed gold in the dim light, shimmering like melted honey. A small spoonful of actual honey was added, thick, golden, warm. It dissolved slowly, releasing a sweetness that touched the back of the throat and the edges of the heart. The Vikings didn't call it a remedy. They called it comfort. The warm tea was not about curing sleeplessness. It was about ceremony. The act of slowing down, of watching the steam, of letting time drip instead of race. The bitter met the sweet, the warmth met the cold, and the body found its balance again. Outside, snow fell soundlessly. Inside, the scent of valerian and the hum of quiet breath wove together, soft as fur. A child, drowsy from the warmth, clutched his small pillow and drifted off, his face turned toward the firelight. The adults lingered a little longer, sipping, whispering, stretching their limbs. In the hush of the hall, one could almost hear the herbs speaking, the valerian whispering patience, the hops humming peace, the chamomile sighing release. And when finally they lay down, it was not sleep that took them, but the earth, cradling them back into its rhythm, one slow heartbeat at a time.
Outside, the snow kept falling, soft and endless. But inside the Viking settlement, warmth moved like a quiet song. The longhouse was not the only place of night. Beside it, near the frozen stream, stood the badstofa, a small hut built of stone and timber, known simply as the House of Heat. It was there that the Vikings ended their day. Before sleep, they met water, steam, and scent, their oldest healers. Inside the bathhouse, the air shimmered with mist. Stones, heated through the evening, glowed faintly red beneath a layer of ash. A man lifted a wooden ladle, poured water over them, and the steam rose with a soft hiss, curling through the shadows like breath from the earth itself. The warmth wrapped around bodies chilled by wind and snow, seeping into skin, muscle, and bone. The sound of dripping water echoed gently, rhythmic, like the beating of a slow drum. No one spoke loudly here. The bath was not a place of cleansing alone. It was a ritual, a slow surrender. Steam mixed with the scent of herbs hung above the stones. Juniper, birch leaves, and a handful of dried chamomile. When the heat touched them, their oils bloomed, filling the air with a smell both sharp and tender, forest and flower, life and rest. A woman brushed melted snow from her hair, her cheeks glowing with warmth. Children giggled softly, their laughter muffled by steam. Someone added valerian root to the pot by the wall. Its scent deepened the air, grounding it. The bathhouse pulsed like a living heart. When the heat became too much, they stepped outside for a breath of night. The cold struck their skin like a kiss, shocking,
cleansing, waking every nerve. Above them, the stars burned clear. They stood there, half naked in the snow, laughing quietly, steam rising from their shoulders. For a moment, they belonged entirely to the elements, the fire, the ice, the air, and the earth beneath their feet. Then they returned inside, to the soft warmth waiting. In a corner, a jar of oil sat beside a carved wooden bowl. The oil, pressed from herbs and animal fat, carried the smell of pine and sage. A mother rubbed it between her palms, then across her child's arms, slow circular motions that left a sheen on the skin. The warmth of her hands spread peace deeper than words. Around them, the room hummed softly with life, water dripping, fire crackling, breath mingling. It was not just the body being soothed, but the mind uncoiling from the day. The Vikings had no word for self-care. They called it attunement, to be in tune with the world, to let the inside match the outside. In that warmth, time dissolved, worries softened, and as they left the steam, wrapping themselves in wool and fur, the scent of herbs clung to their hair and skin like a quiet memory. By the time they returned to the longhouse, the night had grown gentler. The firelight flickered like a slow heartbeat. They laid down not merely clean, but renewed. The kind of rest that doesn't come from exhaustion, but from harmony. Sleep, when it came, was not an escape. It was a continuation of the ritual, the final exhale of the day, carried by steam, scent, and silence. When the steam faded and the cold retreated, the Vikings returned to the longhouse, carrying warmth upon their skin. Their hair smelled of pine and smoke, their hearts slower, quieter, emptied of the noise that daylight brought. The night was now a companion, not a void. Inside, the fire glowed softly, not fierce, not fading, just enough to keep the air alive. Its light shimmered against wooden walls, catching the edges of shields and carved patterns of dragons and leaves. This was the hour of sweetness, the small ritual that sealed the day. On a wooden table rested a pot of honey, thick and golden, warmed near the hearth. The honey had been gathered in late summer, when bees danced across the heather fields. It was more than food. It was sunlight stored, gentleness preserved. A woman dipped a carved spoon into the pot, watching the honey stretch, heavy and slow. She stirred it into a cup of warm milk, the surface turning golden. The scent filled the air, soft, sweet, a whisper of flowers long gone. Around her, others followed, children, elders, warriors, all quiet now, as though this act itself was prayer. The honey coated their tongues, lingered on their lips, and spread warmth from throat to chest like a secret glow that no cold could touch. The body, tired but content, began to melt into stillness. Someone hummed a low tune, an old song with no words, only sound, half lullaby, half memory. The fire answered with its soft crackle. The air itself seemed to breathe. In the corners, shadows moved like slow tides. It was in these small, unhurried gestures, stirring, sipping, breathing, that peace took shape. The Vikings did not chase calm, they cultivated it. Warm water, oil, herbs, honey, all carried meaning, a kind of devotion not to gods, but to the rhythm of being human. To end the day was to thank it. To sleep was to trust that the world would still turn while they dreamed. A man poured the last of the tea, its steam curling up like a spirit leaving the body. He looked at the fire, his eyes reflecting its glow. There was nothing left to do. The day had been lived fully, and the night received them in return. One by one, they lay down beneath wool and fur, the warmth of honey still on their lips, the scent of valerian still in the air, the echo of steam and song still in the mind. Outside, the wind passed gently through the pines. Inside, hearts slowed, breaths softened. The fire flickered once more, as if nodding good night, and then settled into a quiet rhythm, the steady pulse of a world at rest. And there, in the amber light of the hearth, wrapped in the fragrance of herbs and the aftertaste of honey, the Vikings fell not into sleep, but into peace.
The longhouse had grown still again. The watching hours had passed. The herbs had burned down to their final scent, and the warmth from the hearth was now a gentle pulse, not heat, but presence. The Vikings were returning to their beds not out of habit, but out of instinct, following a rhythm as old as the world itself. The air was heavy with the quiet after-ceremony, wood, smoke, honey, and breath blending into one soft perfume. No one spoke now. Words would have sounded too sharp, too alive for this hour. Instead, there was only movement, the slow shifting of bodies beneath furs, the soft creak of straw, the sigh of a door settling into its frame. The second sleep did not need invitation. It came like a tide rising over the sand, slow but certain. The body, already warm from steam and rest, yielded easily. Muscles loosened, hands unclenched. Eyes fluttered closed not from effort, but from surrender. The world began to fall away in layers, the crackle of fire fading first, then the wind outside, then even the awareness of self. What remained was breath, deep, rhythmic, timeless. Somewhere in the darkness, someone turned, a soft rustle of fur. Another sighed, not from discomfort, but from the small relief that comes when one has nothing left to do. The mind drifted, no longer tethered to thought, floating between sound and silence. It was here that the Vikings entered the realm of dreams, not sudden, not bright, but slow, like mist rolling across a fjord. The sea often came first, endless, silver, and breathing. They dreamt of long ships cutting through waves that shimmered beneath a pale sun, the oars dipping in perfect rhythm.
The ocean was both mirror and mother, vast, cold, alive. Some dreamt of forests, where pines whispered secrets to the night, where wolves moved like smoke, and snow fell in slow motion. Others met faces they had not seen in years, ancestors, gone yet not lost. The dreams did not speak in words, but in symbols. A raven circling above a ship, a torch burning in the fog, a hand reaching through water. These were not stories to be remembered, but feelings to be carried, the kind that linger upon waking, quiet but powerful. As the dreams deepened, so did the rest. The second sleep was not about escape, it was about return to the deep rhythm of life itself. Their breath matched the slow dance of the fire, the rise and fall of the night. Time thinned, thought softened, and somewhere between one heartbeat and the next, the body forgot itself entirely, drifting into the same silence that wrapped the mountains outside.
The second sleep deepened like the sea at night, dark, endless, and full of quiet life. The Vikings had surrendered fully now, their bodies heavy beneath furs, their minds adrift. In the longhouse, silence was no longer the absence of sound, but the pulse of everything breathing together. Outside, the wind whispered through the pines. Inside, the air carried the rhythm of dozens of slow, even breaths. This was the kind of stillness that made dreams bloom. They came softly, not like visions forced upon the mind, but like memories rising from the ocean floor. In these dreams, time forgot its shape. The past and the present folded into one, and the world became fluid, luminous, weightless. A warrior dreamt of the sea, not as a battlefield, but as a mirror. Beneath his ship, the water glowed with pale fire. He saw faces in the waves, faces he once knew, his father, his mother, those who had sailed before him. They said nothing, but their eyes were full of warmth, as if reminding him that he was never alone. The waves rose and fell like breathing, and when he reached out, his hand passed through light. In another dream, a woman walked through a forest that had no end. The trees swayed in a wind that carried no sound. Every step she took left ripples in the mist, and behind her, shapes moved, deer, wolves, ancestors cloaked in starlight. She did not fear them. She knew their scent, their silence, their watching. Sometimes the gods appeared, not in the form of thunder or glory, but as presences felt rather than seen. Odin's ravens might circle above, whispering secrets she would forget by dawn. Brig might brush her hair with wind, leaving a sense of comfort that lingered even after waking. The Vikings believed dreams were doors, not illusions, thin places where the world of men touched the world of spirits. The deeper the sleep, the wider the door. In that second sleep, the soul wandered freely, unburdened by flesh or name. It traveled the same paths their ancestors had walked, over the frozen rivers of the north, across the bright fields of Asgard, through halls lit by eternal fire. There was no fear here. Death was not an ending, only another room of the same house. They floated through visions,
a child laughing by the shore, a sail rising in golden wind, a wolf howling to a moon made of ice. Each image shimmered and faded like breath upon glass, yet the feelings remained: belonging, continuity, peace. Their dreams remembered what their minds could not, that to sleep deeply was to return home. Outside, the stars wheeled slowly above the mountains, the constellations that once guided their voyages, now watching over their rest. The fire in the hearth burned low, its last light trembling across faces lost in dreams. The air was thick with stillness. The body rested, the soul roamed, and the world, for a while, held its breath.
The dreams began to fade, not abruptly, but as mist thins when the sun rises beyond the hills. The longhouse still slept, wrapped in warmth and silence. Yet something was changing. A whisper, a shift, a faint golden hue slipping through the cracks between the logs. The air held the first signs of morning. It did not rush. It crept gently, the way dawn always does, brushing its fingers across fur blankets, over the curve of a cheek, the softness of hair. A child stirred first, not fully awake, but turning, chasing the last flicker of a dream. Then another breath, deeper, slower. The rhythm of the house began to change, the way the sea changes just before the tide returns. The fire was little more than ash now, its glow faint but faithful, still pulsing beneath the gray. The scent of last night lingered: honey, valerian, smoke, memories carried on the cool air. Outside, frost glittered on the thatched roof, catching the first light. Somewhere far off, a rooster called, a thin sound, distant but clear, a bridge between dream and day. Inside, the Vikings slept through it. Their bodies, perfectly attuned to the world, did not need alarms or clocks. They rose when light touched them, when warmth replaced shadow. That was their rhythm, nature's own breath. The second sleep held them until that moment, until the mind began to float upward, slowly, gently, like a leaf rising through water. Awareness returned not as a jolt, but as a tide lifting them home. The dreams did not vanish, they simply softened, retreating to the quiet corners of the soul, waiting for another night. Some would remember fragments, the sound of waves, the glint of a star, the voice of someone long gone. Others would remember nothing, yet carry a peace they could not explain. The Vikings opened their eyes, not to noise or duty, but to light, pure, honest, unhurried. The world outside glowed pale gold, the sky streaked with rose and ash. Smoke from the hearth rose through the roof hole, meeting the cold morning air like prayer. Somewhere a pot would soon boil. Someone would stretch, laugh softly, breathe deeply. The second sleep had done its work. The body renewed, the mind rinsed clean, the spirit rebalanced. In this rhythm of rest and rising, of silence and dawn, they found something most of the modern world has forgotten: the grace of natural time. No hurry, no noise, just the slow unfolding of day after the deep surrender of night. And as the longhouse woke, one breath at a time, the world outside did too. Frost melting into dew, wind warming to song, light moving through the trees like memory. The Vikings did not mark this as the beginning of a new day. For them, it was simply the continuation of a larger dream, one that began in sleep but never truly ended. The first light of dawn did not break suddenly over the Viking lands. It crept gently, like breath returning to the body after a long night. The horizon blushed faintly, a pale wash of rose and gold spilling across the frost. Inside the longhouse, warmth lingered from the night before. The air carried the scent of wood smoke and wool, of quiet bodies that had slept deeply and well. No bells, no alarms, no rush, only light. It slipped through the small smoke hole above the hearth, found its way across beams and furs, and touched a face here, a shoulder there. It was enough. One by one the Vikings stirred, not startled, not groggy, but calm, as if answering a rhythm older than words. Their eyes opened to light, not noise. The body, rested by nature's design, moved easily, unforced. Breath deepened, arms stretched beneath heavy furs, joints loosened with quiet satisfaction. This was waking as it was meant to be, not wrestled from sleep, but guided from it. Outside, the world was already alive. The river that had frozen in the night began to whisper again under its shell of ice. Ravens called from the treetops. Hoarfrost glittered on the wooden posts like powdered silver. A woman rose first, wrapping a wool shawl around her shoulders. She stepped quietly toward the basin near the wall, where cold water, gathered the night before, waited in a carved wooden bowl. She dipped her hands, splashed her face. The water bit her skin, sharp, clean, real. Her breath caught, then steadied. The shock did not hurt, it woke. Around her, others began to move, stretching, murmuring, shaking out the furs. There was no groaning, no reluctance. The Vikings did not see mourning as an enemy to endure, but as a renewal. The fire from the night had burned low, and so one of the men crouched by the hearth, stirring the ash, coaxing the last ember to life. The spark answered, a faint glow spreading into orange. Soon the flames were dancing again, the longhouse breathing warmth. Someone placed a pot of water near it, for tea or perhaps for nothing in particular. Outside, the air was crisp enough to sting the lungs, but it smelled of promise, pine, sea salt, and light. The first morning sounds began, axes splitting wood, footsteps crunching frost, a low hum of voices. The world was awake, yet still calm. The Vikings moved through it with a quiet strength, their energy not borrowed from caffeine or chaos, but born from the earth itself. Their rest had not dulled them, it had sharpened them. The morning was not a beginning, but a continuation. The body picking up where the soul had left off in dream. By the time the sky had turned from gold to pale blue, the longhouse was awake in quiet harmony. There was movement now, soft, unhurried, purposeful. A man lifted the heavy door latch, and the first true breath of morning slipped inside, cold, bright, and alive. The air carried the scent of pine smoke and salt from the distant sea. Outside, the world glistened, Frost clung to every branch, every blade of grass, sparkling as if the gods themselves had brushed the earth with powdered light. One by one they stepped into the morning, their boots pressed into the crisp snow, leaving perfect impressions that would fade by noon. The Vikings greeted the day not with shouts or commands, but with quiet reverence, the kind that comes from knowing the sun is not guaranteed, but earned. At the edge of the stream, thin sheets of ice clung to the stones. A woman knelt and cupped her hands, breaking through the thin crust. The water was shockingly cold. She splashed her face, gasped softly, and smiled. The cold was a blessing, the earth's own way of saying, "You are awake." Around her, others followed. The men rinsed their faces. The children laughed as water dripped from their chins. The act was simple, but sacred, cleansing not just of body, but of mind. There were no mirrors, yet they knew what awakening looked like. Clear eyes, open breath, steady hearts. Back inside, the fire burned brighter now. Someone poured warm water into wooden cups, steam curling in the air. It wasn't tea or coffee, just water warmed by flame. They drank slowly, feeling the heat spread down into their chests, as though the morning itself was being swallowed. A few drops of honey were added for sweetness, but nothing more. Outside, a faint orange glow touched the peaks of the distant mountains. The day had begun. Before breakfast, they prayed, not to ask, but to thank. Hands clasped, heads bowed, eyes half closed in reflection. They spoke few words, sometimes none at all. The gratitude was not performative, it was instinctive. The Vikings thanked the gods for the fire, for the roof, for the strength to work, and for the sleep that had restored them. Gratitude, they believed, was the first labor of the day, the quietest, but most important. Afterward came food, simple, nourishing, perfect in its modesty. Oats simmered slowly in a pot over the fire, the smell of grain mingling with wood smoke. A bit of milk, a spoon of honey, maybe a handful of dried berries from summer past. There were no feasts here, only sustenance. Yet in the steam rising from those bowls, there was contentment. The warmth of the porridge, the laughter of children, the crackle of fire, all stitched together like threads of the same morning hymn. The Vikings ate not in haste, but in rhythm. Each bite was deliberate, each sip of milk slow. The day would be long, wood to split, nets to mend, fields to check. But there was no rush. Energy came not from urgency, but from balance. The same stillness that had carried them into sleep now carried them into the day. By the time the sun cleared the horizon, light filled every corner of the longhouse. It was not harsh, it glowed like honey poured over the world. The Vikings moved through it slowly, methodically, each gesture carrying purpose but never haste. A man tied his boots, testing the leather straps with quiet focus. Another lifted a stack of wood, the sound of the logs meeting his shoulder echoing softly through the hall. Outside, the morning was alive, axes striking, voices blending with the call of birds, the crunch of snow underfoot. Yet there was no chaos. Even in motion, there was peace. Their bodies were strong, but their minds were still. A balance that began not in training or will, but in rest. Deep, natural sleep had sharpened them from within. Every cell seemed to hum with quiet strength. They did not need stimulants to rise, no cups of bitter brew to push through fatigue. Their energy came from alignment, from the unbroken rhythm of night and day, body and breath. The Vikings understood something the modern world has forgotten, that stillness is not weakness, it is stored power. When one sleeps well, the world slows down. Choices become clearer, actions cleaner, thoughts steadier. They didn't measure time in hours, but in cycles of light, labor, and renewal. A man who had slept deeply would swing his axe not 10 times more, but once more precisely. A woman who had rested fully would carry water not with strain, but with grace. Energy was not a flame to burn, but a current to guide. As they worked, laughter came easily, not loud, but real, the kind that bubbles up from a place of wholeness. Children ran between them, chasing the geese by the stream. The world was waking completely now. Frost melted from the rooftops. Steam curled from mouths and pots alike. Someone hummed a tune older than memory, and others joined without thinking. It wasn't a song for work, it was a song for being. The rhythm of hands, breath, and movement made music of its own. The Vikings believed that to wake naturally was to honor the gift of the night. To live well was to carry that peace into the labor of the day. They did not divide rest and action. They were two halves of one heartbeat. And as the sun climbed higher, they became part of that heartbeat, steady, timeless, unhurried. The day had begun, but the stillness remained. The fire from within, kindled in the quiet of sleep, fed by ritual and gratitude, burned on, unseen but unending. In the northern lands, winter did not arrive suddenly. It crept in like a quiet visitor, soft-footed but certain. The sun began to rise lower each day, tracing shorter arcs across the sky. Shadows lengthened. The air thickened. By late November, the light had become something fragile, like breath on glass, there but fleeting. The days shrank to a few brief hours, the sun appearing only to remind them it still existed. By afternoon, twilight had already settled over the snow. And so began the season of long nights, the season of deep rest. The Vikings knew this rhythm well. They did not fight it. The shortening of days was not a loss, but a return, a turning inward, both for the land and for the heart. Animals slowed. Rivers froze. The wind learned to sing through the cracks of wood. The people, too, changed their pace. The longhouse became the center of their world, their fortress, their nest, their small sun against the dark. Inside, the walls glowed with the memory of flame. The fire burned lower,
steady and orange, throwing light that trembled against the beams. The air was thick with warmth and scent, smoke, wool, and cooked grain. Outside, the wind howled across the fjord, shaking the wooden shutters, scattering snow like white sand. But inside, it was calm, the kind of calm that feels like being held. The Vikings slept more now. Their bodies, guided by the absence of light, yielded naturally to longer rest. They went to bed early, often before the sky was fully dark, and woke later, when dawn finally found them. 9, sometimes 10 hours of sleep, broken only by brief wakefulness for the fire or for thought. The darkness was not oppressive. It was generous. It offered time to breathe, to think, to mend, to simply exist. Evening meals were early, around the 4th or 5th hour after noon. A stew of barley and smoked fish simmered in a clay pot, filling the hall with slow comfort. The meal was small, but full of life, each bite a warmth that carried them through the frozen night. Afterward, they gathered near the hearth, sitting close enough to share blankets, stories, and silence. Outside, the wind roamed. Inside, the world felt small, safe, and infinite all at once. Winter was not the enemy. It was the teacher. It whispered, "Slow down. Rest deeper. The world is still moving, even when you are not." And the Vikings, unlike the modern souls who chase light endlessly, listened.
When the snow piled higher than the window ledges, the longhouse became its own world. Outside, the wind swept across the white fields, moaning like a restless spirit. Inside, the air was thick with warmth, laughter, and the soft rhythm of life slowed down. The longhouse was never silent, but its sounds were tender. The creak of wood expanding in heat, the sigh of logs settling in the fire, the murmur of voices trading stories. The walls glowed orange, and every shadow moved like a living thing. The Vikings had learned that to survive winter was not to fight it, but to move with it, to rest when the world rested, to dream when the land dreamed. As daylight disappeared early, they gathered close, the hearth at the center of everything. It was both sun and story, feeding the body and the spirit. The older men carved wood by the firelight, their knives whispering across the grain, shaping handles, bowls, small idols. Sparks danced upward like stars being born. Women spun wool into yarn, their fingers sure and steady, twisting threads that would later become warmth itself. The children listened to the scraping of tools, to the quiet hum of voices, to the occasional crack of ice on the roof. They knew this rhythm by heart. Sometimes someone would tell a story, not loud, but slow, as if speaking directly to the fire.
tales of Thor's hammer echoing in the mountains, of Odin's ravens flying through storm clouds, of the first man and woman carved from driftwood by the gods. The children leaned closer, eyes wide, mouths open, faces glowing in the firelight. Each story seemed older than the wind, yet somehow as new as their own heartbeat. Outside, the storm might rage, but in here they were safe, wrapped in warmth, story, and each other. In one corner, an old man mended a fishing net, his hands moving from memory more than sight. Beside him, a young woman repaired a leather sheath, threading sinew with patient care. Every gesture was quiet devotion to craft, to family, to time itself. The night stretched long, but no one wished it shorter. Time, like the snow, had settled. Every breath, every motion belonged to a slower clock. There was a peace in the repetition, in the scrape of the knife, the hum of the spindle, the flicker of flame reflected in a dozen calm eyes. The Vikings did not rush through winter, they inhabited it. It was a season for mending, for building strength, for remembering who they were when the world outside slept. And so, within those thick wooden walls, as the storm whispered at the door, life continued, gentle, rhythmic, and warm as the beating heart of the earth itself. By midwinter, darkness had claimed nearly everything. The sun appeared only for a few brief hours, a pale coin behind a sky the color of iron. Yet even in that dim world there was beauty. The frost painted the windows with lace, and the snow, piled high upon the roofs, glowed faintly under the moon. The Vikings did not see the absence of light as despair, but as invitation. Nature was whispering to them, "Slow down, breathe, restore." They followed, as they always had. Sleep stretched longer, and so did dreams. In the silence between the crackling fire and the sighing wind, the boundary between waking and resting blurred. Some called it the human hibernation, but to the Vikings it was simply life in rhythm, not a retreat from the world, but a harmony with it. The long winter was not a test of endurance, but of understanding. They knew that life, like the sea, had its tides, moments to surge and moments to still. To fight that rhythm was to lose strength. To move with it was to grow wiser. So they surrendered, not in defeat, but in faith. Inside the longhouse, time moved differently. Days were marked not by clocks, but by the glow of embers, the stirring of the stew, the soft hum of stories retold. Children slept longer, elders rested without guilt. Each body seemed to know this was the season to gather warmth, not waste it. Their rest was deep, unhurried, complete. The modern world, by contrast, has forgotten this pact with nature. We live in defiance of the dark, burning lights through the night, chasing productivity as though stillness were death. But the Vikings knew the truth. The earth does not bloom without winter, nor do people. The rest of the world sleeps for a reason. Beneath the frozen soil, seeds are preparing. Beneath closed eyelids, the mind repairs. Winter is not absence, it is preparation. To sleep longer is not to do less, but to return stronger. In their stillness, the Vikings were not lazy, they were wise. They listened to the pulse beneath the silence, the rhythm beneath the cold. They let their bodies speak the language of the earth, slow, steady, cyclical. And when spring finally came, when the light returned and the rivers cracked open, they would arise, rested, ready, alive. For in their philosophy, rest was not the opposite of living. It was living, done correctly.
And now, as our Viking night draws to its quiet end, let us pause, just for a moment, to breathe and reflect on what we've seen. We have walked through a complete night, from sunset to sunrise, from the first flicker of the hearth to the golden whisper of dawn. We have lived, for a little while, as they once did, in rhythm, not resistance, in stillness, not speed. 1,000 years have passed since their fires burned in the northern snow, and yet their wisdom still glows. Tonight has not only been a story, it has been a mirror, showing us what we've lost and what we might still remember. The Vikings, you see, understood something we have forgotten, that darkness was not the enemy of life, but its cradle. They did not fear the night. When the sun disappeared, they did not chase it with bright lights and noise. They welcomed the dark like an old friend returning home. The longhouse did not shine. It shimmered, softly, gently, in the amber breath of flame. They let their eyes adjust to the dimness, the body to the quiet, the soul to the rhythm of fading light. They trusted the night to hold them, to slow their hearts, to whisper them into sleep. The modern world has unlearned that trust. We flood our rooms with white light. We stare into glowing screens long past dusk. We push the night away as if silence could harm us. But darkness is not a void. It is medicine. It is the signal that tells the body it is time. It is the gentle hand that lowers the curtain on the mind's restless stage. When the Vikings sat by their fire, the shadows moved softly across their faces, and in that tender half-light, their breathing deepened, their thoughts slowed, their melatonin rose like the moon outside. They slept not because they were tired, but because the world around them told them it was safe to do so. Imagine, just for a moment, a night without electricity. Only a small fire, its light flickering against wood and wool. The longhouse no longer something to escape, but to rest in. The body would know
instantly what to do. The eyes would soften, the pulse would steady, and the weight of wakefulness would fade. Darkness would no longer be a wall, it would be a blanket. The Vikings did not conquer the night, they communed with it. They trusted that nature, in her quiet wisdom, had built the night for a reason, and perhaps she built it for us too.
Long before the hum of electricity, before alarm clocks, before neon and caffeine, humans slept in 2 chapters. The Vikings did, and so did nearly every civilization that came before the Industrial Age. It was not strange to them. It was the most natural rhythm of all. After supper, when the fire dimmed and the air grew cold, families would drift into their first sleep. It was deep, unbroken, restorative. Their breathing slowed, their muscles softened, and the body entered a state of calm that modern people rarely feel. The longhouse would fall into silence, broken only by the sigh of the wind and the crack of the hearth. For 3 or 4 hours they slept deeply, not counting the time, not thinking about the clock that did not exist. Then, quietly, without fear, the body would rise. Not fully awake, not restless, simply aware. Someone would add a log to the fire. Someone else might sip warm water or walk to the door to listen to the snow. The children would turn in their blankets, murmuring softly. This was the watching hour, a sacred pause between 2 worlds. No one called it insomnia. It was simply part of being human. During that gentle wakefulness, people would pray, think, whisper, or simply be. They would talk softly about dreams, about the sea, about tomorrow's journey. The light from the embers flickered across their faces like thought itself, brief, warm, fading, returning. And when the eyelids grew heavy again, there was no effort to sleep. It came naturally, easily, as though the night itself had 2 hearts beating in time with theirs. The second sleep began, richer, deeper, full of visions. The Vikings dreamed of forests, of storms, of ancestors calling from distant shores. Their minds wandered safely through those dreams, unhurried, unafraid. By the time dawn painted the horizon, they had lived 2 lives in one night, one in the waking stillness, one in the world of dreams. And they woke not groggy, not tired, but restored, the way the earth breathes after rain. Modern life has forgotten this rhythm. We wake in the middle of the night and panic. We reach for our phones, count the hours, fear the clock. But the Vikings would smile at this. They would say, "You are simply between sleeps." And if you listen closely, even now, your body still remembers that rhythm. The rise, the pause, the return. It is not broken sleep, it is ancient sleep. The Vikings did not measure life in hours. They measured it in seasons, in cycles of light and rest. They had no clocks, and they did not need them. When the body grew tired, they slept. When the light crept in through the slits of the longhouse, they rose.
It was that simple, the pure dialogue between nature and flesh. During winter, when the nights stretched long as rivers of ink, they slept more, 9, 10, sometimes even 11 hours. Their bodies, like the earth, knew when to hibernate. And when the sun returned for the summer months, when light lingered till midnight, they slept less, their days alive with movement and song. They did not demand balance from nature. They followed it. They knew there was wisdom in the rhythm of the world, a pulse that told them when to rest, when to rise, when to breathe. Modern people have forgotten this pulse. We chase the illusion of perfect control, 8 hours, fixed alarms, rigid schedules, as though the body were a machine instead of a melody. But nature does not keep time by numbers. It breathes, expands, contracts, and sings in waves. And so do we when we let it. The Vikings understood that health was not found in control, but in surrender. Surrender to the changing light, the whispering wind, the long, dark nights. They trusted their senses more than their schedules. They lived not against the seasons, but within them. The closer they listened, the better they slept. The more they aligned, the calmer their hearts became. And then there was the warmth of togetherness. Inside the longhouse, no one slept alone. They shared not just space, but heartbeat, the sound of another's breathing, the weight of presence. In that shared silence, the brain felt safe, the body loosened its grip, and sleep came deeper, heavier, more complete. It wasn't luxury, it was instinct. To be surrounded by familiar sounds, the crackle of fire, a soft snore, the rustle of wool, meant safety. It told the ancient mind, you are not alone. You can rest. Even now, echoes of that instinct remain. We sleep better beside a loved one, beside a pet, or with gentle sounds, rain, ocean, the wind through leaves. These are not distractions, they are ancient lullabies. They speak the same language the Vikings once heard, the hum of life continuing quietly in the dark. Modern isolation, the locked door and glowing phone, may protect the body, but leaves the spirit exposed. Alone, the mind stands guard when it should dream. But surrounded by others, by sound, by warmth, it can finally let go. That is why the Vikings slept better than we do. They were not chasing rest, they were embraced by it. And now, as our story reaches its final ember, breathe slowly. Feel the quiet settle around you, like snow falling gently outside a longhouse in the far north. Tonight, we have walked through the full circle of a Viking night, from the first fading light to the gentle birth of dawn. We have lived what they once lived, the fire, the stillness, the rhythm of rest. But the greatest gift they left us is not the story of how they slept, but why they slept so well. They trusted the world. They trusted the night. They trusted themselves to rest. Darkness was never their enemy. It was their ally, their sanctuary. The night told them when to stop, and they listened. Their bodies, their breath, their dreams all followed the same tide that the stars obey. The world turned slowly, and they turned with it. And perhaps that is the lesson the modern heart longs to remember, that there is nothing to win in the night, nothing to fix, nothing to control. The night is not a battle, it is a homecoming. So now, let go. Let the body sink a little deeper. Feel the muscles soften, the breath slow, the weight of the day dissolve. You are safe. You are warm. You are home. Imagine now the soft glow of firelight dancing on wooden walls. Outside, snow drifts quietly across the world, wrapping everything in silver silence. Inside, the longhouse hums with warmth, the gentle crackle of flame, the faint sigh of sleeping voices. You lie beneath furs and wool, the air rich with the scent of smoke and pine. The darkness is kind here. It holds you, not hides you. You do not need to chase sleep. It is already here, in your chest, in your breath, in the stillness between heartbeats. Nothing is missing. Nothing is wrong. The world has slowed for you, just as it once did for them. Let your thoughts fade now, one by one, like sparks disappearing into the night sky. The body remembers what to do. The breath remembers. The earth remembers. You are part of that same rhythm, ancient, unbroken, eternal. Sleep is not something you take. It is something that takes you, gently, completely, without effort. So now, as the last echo of the story fades, imagine the world dimming to amber, then to shadow, then to peace. The fire sighs, the snow falls, the heart drifts. You are home, Viking dreamer, safe within the night. Sleep well, my friend, sleep well.